Okay, in this video, we're going to learn how to draw a dartboard illustration using Adobe Illustrator. It's not necessarily the most fun, creative type of drawing, but it's important to learn how to draw something that's more mathematical, and this dartboard is a perfect way to do that. So we'll be able to learn how to use the scale tool, the rotate tool, type on a path, text tracking, pathfinder, shape builder, and outline stroke. So let's get started. So open up Illustrator and let's make a new file, and you can make it 5 inches by 5 inches. You can make the raster effects 150. That should be plenty big, and say create. All right, if you don't have the same panels open or tabs that I have open and you see me going to them, remember everything you'll need is in this window tab here. So if I'm going over here to something and you don't have it, just check it on the window tab there. All right, so the first thing we need to do is to draw the outer perimeter of the dartboards. So I'm going to get the ellipse tool here, and I'm going to click in the center of my artboard here. And since my document is 5 by 5, I'm just going to go ahead and make my ellipse 4 by 4. And I'm using these align tools at the top to center it in my screen. So I click the horizontal align and the vertical align tool there. All right, so we have the outer perimeter. I have mine set to, let's see, I'm just going to make the fill none for right now and the stroke black, and we'll give it maybe a 0.5 point stroke. All right, so the next thing we need to do is to draw the lines that go in between all the segments on the dartboard. So I have in your lesson, I have this thing here. It says a dartboard is a circle with 20 segments. So we have 360 degrees, 20 segments. That's 18 degrees per segment. So let's go back to Illustrator and start drawing those segments. So I'm going to use the line tool here, or the pen tool, to draw the first line. So I wanted to make sure you're intersecting with that. So I want to click here and hold the shift key and click down at the bottom and make sure that I'm intersecting there exactly. And then click on the selection tool to stop the path. And then we need to align this to center. So one way to check that is if you do Control Y and you zoom in, you can see that this little point right there is the very center of my circle, and my line is right on top of it. If you didn't draw your line right on the top, let's do Control Y again. You can do this again. What I did earlier was select both of the items and click the horizontal align button there at the top. Okay, so what we need to do next is to rotate this 18 degrees all the way around to get all of our segments. So I'm going to click on this line, and then I'm going to go to my rotate tool, which is over here behind the scale tool, or it might be in front of it, depending on which tool you've used last. But you can press R to find the rotate tool. And I'm going to double click on that. And I already have mine set to 18. And we want to make sure we press copy. So press copy. Now, instead of keep doing that over and over again, if you press Control D, that means to duplicate the same thing that you already did. So I can just press Control D, go all the way around until I get all my segments. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is let's put a picture of this dartboard on here so we can use it as a reference while we're drawing it. So I'm going to copy the one that I did already, and I'm going to paste it over here to the side, and just so we can use it as a reference the whole time. I'll give this file to you as well so you can do that. Okay, so you can see now the next thing we need to do is to draw these concentric circles going down into the very bullseye. So this is the outermost point of our dartboard, and I need to go ahead and copy in. What I'm going to do is use the scale tool to copy more concentric circles going down. So the first thing I want to do is draw this, maybe this white outline right here. So I'm going to get my scale tool, which is behind the rotate tool, press S, and I'm going to select this outermost line, and I'm going to double click inside the scale tool. And what I want to do is I want to reduce it. This is going to be some guesswork on your part. You'll kind of get a feel for scaling things as you go, but you can keep changing it. I think the first line I want to do is going to be 95% smaller, and then I'm going to press copy. So now you see it gave me that next line, which is this white line right here. Now the next one I want to do is this line over here, and it's going to be a lot smaller than that. So I'm going to double click the scale tool, and I'm going to try 80% this time and say copy. And so that looks okay. I actually want that to be a little bit bigger. I don't really want the numbers to have that much room. So I'm going to go back to scale and maybe bring it up to 108. And this time I'm not going to press copy because I want that same line to just be bigger and not copied. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now I'm ready to start these little red and green outer perimeter circles. So I'm going to use the scale tool again, and I think I'm going to press 93 and copy. That looks pretty good. And now I need to do this next row of these little dashed lines. So that needs to be a lot smaller. So I'm going to try 80%, copy. Okay, that needs to be smaller. That's really not big enough right here. So I'm going to make that a little smaller still, maybe 90. And again, I'm not going to press copy this time. I'm just going to press 90. And that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and go maybe just a little smaller. Maybe make it 97. This will take some trial and error on your part, but it'll get you used to learning how to scale things. All right, now I need to make another copy of that line, but a little bit smaller. So I'm going to double click that, and we'll try 95, copy, and that is too small. So I'm going to do 95 again. And this time I'm not going to press copy. I'm just going to say okay. And now I have that line. So now the next thing I'm ready to do is to make the green area of my bullseye. So I'm going to double click my scale tool, and we're going to go to about 50. And this time it's another copy. Again, that's too big. I need to make it smaller. Let's make it about 60. All right, that looks pretty good for the green circle. And now the red circle. I'm going to copy another circle that's about 85 and say copy. All right, that's still too tight of a space. And I'm just going to say okay to that. Maybe make the bullseye a little smaller. That looks pretty good. All right, so we have most of our lines done now for the dartboard. And we are going to select all of this here. And we're going to group it, Control G. We can leave this on stroke 0.5 for now. Maybe make it a little bit thicker. That's probably good right there. So make your stroke 0.75 on the dartboard. Click on it and go to Object, and then go to Path, and then Outline Stroke. So what we've done there is, let's zoom in and do Control Y. You can see now that we have all these different, we're getting ready to make these segments so that we can just click on them and color them. So the next thing we need to do is click on that and go to Properties and choose Unite. It's under Pathfinder. Click this one to unite it. And now what we did, if I zoom in, you can see we've made all these, joined together so that we're going to be able to easily click on each segment to colorize it. So what you're going to do is just get your rectangle tool, draw a rectangle that covers the whole dartboard, and then go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. And you want to select everything with your selection tool. And then go back over to your Properties panel again, and down where it says Pathfinder, before we used Unite, now we want to use Click to minus Front. So click on that, and then get your Direct Selection tool and click on the corner of your rectangle, press Delete to get rid of it, then click on this main circle here and press Delete. And then what you're left with is each segment separated so that you can colorize it. All right, so when we're looking at the dartboard, we can see like this first segment right here. Let me move this out of the way for you. You can see the first segment up here where it's 20 is red. So we're going to go over here. Now this is going to be the first segment, which is red here. You can hold your Shift key to select multiple spaces at a time if you want. But if you do that, I would say be very careful that you're not moving the segments as you click on them. That has happened to me before, so just make sure when you click on it that you're not moving the segments. Otherwise, you'd be better off just to click them one at a time instead of this way. All right, so everything in there, I'm just going to go ahead and fill it with red. I'm going to get my eyedropper and just use the same red that I used before, but you can always go to the color palette or get swatches and colorize things that way too. I'll go ahead and open my swatches because that is a good way to colorize things quickly. All right, now we want to get all of those green segments. So get my direct selection tool and hold the shift key so that you can select more than one. And again, just be careful to not accidentally move these segments by dragging your mouse while you're clicking on them. All right, and then once you have all those selected, you can use swatches to make them green. Now I want to colorize these other segments here that are with the red. So again, holding my shift key and clicking on all the segments that are joined with the red. And then I'm going to make them a darker color. You can make them black, or you can make this dartboard any color that you want. And now finally I'm going to select all these segments and then just make them a lighter color. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we're going to colorize these bullseyes a little different. We don't really want all these segments. So what you can do is just draw another circle on top of it. So I'm going to get my ellipse tool, go again in the very center. If you hold your Alt key and a Shift key at the same time, Alt Shift, and you go from the center, you can draw a circle from the center. You don't have to do it that way, but that's how I like to do it. So you want to make a circle that fills that area, and then we're going to get the eyedropper tool and click on the green, and just if you click the align tool, it'll put it perfectly in the center. And I want to put a white outline on mine because it's a little not fitting, the center of the circle exact, so it kind of makes it look better to do that. And then I want the red bullseye again, so I'm going to click this. We can go back to doing that scale thing again and maybe make it about 50% and say copy. And then we're going to fill that one with red. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to make a path that we're going to type all of these numbers on. We want these numbers to go around the dartboard. So we need a path that's just a little bit bigger than where this outline is right here, this outer perimeter. So I'm going to get the ellipse tool again. I'm going to start in the center and hold Alt and Shift. Alt and Shift, and then I'm going to drag a circle out and make it just a little bit bigger than those other ones. Let's get rid of the fill so we can actually see. All right, so I want that to be just a tad bigger. So I'm going to put 102, a little smaller. Oops, 99. Okay, that should work. So this is going to be the path where all of my type is going to go. So what I want to do, which I should have done this before, I'm going to copy this one right here, copy, Control C, and I'm going to delete it. And actually, let's go back to our layers over here, and let's lock this so that we don't accidentally select anything. And let's make a new layer. And then go to Object, go to Edit, Paste in Place. And that way we put that circle exactly where we had it before. But remember, you don't always have to, if you've been using the align tools, if you don't put it in the same spot, you can always go up here to align and put it in the spot that you need it also. So these are some good tools to use up here, the alignment tools, the center, horizontal and vertical center. All right, let's get our type on a path tool. So you've used the type tool before, now we're going to use type on a path. So what you do when you first click on this, you'll see that weird little icon thing going there, and it puts the fake text in there. And yours might not be the right size because I already did this assignment, so it's kind of the size I want. Let me select all of it. To select all of it, by the way, you just right-click inside on the path. Make sure you don't click somewhere else. Make sure you're clicking right on the path. That's probably a little bit of a tricky thing to get right at first. And let's make our text white so we can see it. And what you need to do now is I've gone ahead and typed all these numbers for you. You can copy them right out of the assignment slides. So I've copied these numbers in the assignment slides for you. So you can just drag your cursor across here and do Control C. And then let's go back into Illustrator and get our type on a path tool. Whoops. Make sure you're on type on a path. Click on that. I'm going to click in here and I'm going to do Control A to get all of it and then do Control V to paste. So as you can see, the spacing on this is not very good. So let me show you how to do that. And it is not always fun learning this type on a path tool. So what I'm doing right now is I'm dragging the 20, let me start over so I can explain better and zoom in a little bit. If you zoom in to the text on the type on a path, you'll see these lines here, and they're a little bit tricky to work with, but I'm going to click on the second line. I'm going to pull this over so that the 20 is centered in that box. So it needs to be pulled over a little bit more, something like that. And then I'm going to zoom out now, and I'm going to take this, see how this has this red plus right here? That means we need to show all the other text that's behind it. So we're going to click on that line, and we're going to pull it all the way around until we stop right before the 20 right here. And that's going to give us room to space out all of these other numbers here. So let's go back to the type on a path and click on the path and just start adding some spaces so that we can space our numbers out on the board better. And I'm going to show you how to tweak that because it won't be perfect at first. So do not worry if it doesn't line up perfectly right off. So what I'm doing is just clicking in the middle of the numbers and holding the space bar until I get things fairly centered each number. All right, so once you get all your numbers pasted in all the way around the circle, I'm going to show you how to use tracking to tweak any of those spaces if you need to. Mine look pretty good though. These don't really need tracking much, but I want to show you how to do it in case yours don't end up in the right spot. So what you can do again is using the type on a path tool. Let's say I wanted, whoa, not that. Let's say I want to make this space a little bit bigger, but actually using a whole space is too much. And by the way, you want to start from the beginning of these. Don't like start editing the space over here because it's going to mess you up as you go around. Make sure you start from the beginning. So what you want to do is have your character tab open. Again, that's under Window, Character. And this right here is called Tracking. If you hold your mouse over it, it says Tracking. And by the way, this is on all the Adobe certification tests that you can take. So this is good to know how to do tracking and understand what it is. So tracking is the space between a bunch of characters. So I have all these spaces selected, and I'm just going to click this up arrow, and you'll see I'm nudging that all around just a little bit. And now I'm going to do this here in between the 1 and the 18. And this time I'm going to push the down arrow and just keep clicking until it's centered very well. And then I'm going to increase the space a little bit on the 4. And just keep going around and doing that to any number you see that's not perfectly centered inside of its segment. Remember to start from here though and go around like a clockwise. If you like start editing some sizes over here, you're going to mess it up over here. So it's better to go clockwise around here. So this one I see I would kind of like to space out that a little bit more. So I'm going to click the plus there and maybe click the minus on some of this space. Just go up if you want to increase space and go down arrow if you want to decrease some space. Try to work on getting it as centered perfectly as you can. All right, that is pretty good. All All right, so we're almost done here. I was looking off camera at this and had to laugh a little bit at how big I have my bullseye. This is for people that are no good at darts, I guess. All right, so the next thing we need to learn how to do is to make this area where the numbers are not have those segments in between them. You don't have to do that, but I think it looks a little bit nicer to have these filled in solid. So what you're going to do is get your ellipse tool again, go in the very center, hold the Alt and Shift, and click and drag out 2 circles. We're going to have one here, and then you can use the scale tool again to make it the bigger circle. So let's try maybe 120 and copy. That's pretty close. I'm going to make it just a tad bigger. 101. All right, and that covers everything up. And then what you want to do again is to make sure that your circles are in the center. So make sure you're pressing the align keys to make them perfectly centered. And I want to get this one along with that other first one I drew. So since that one's blocking it, I'm going to go to Object, Arrange, just send backward one thing. And now I'm able to select this circle as well, make sure it's aligned. And now I can get both. And you can either use the Shape Builder tool to knock out the center, or you can also use, let's get both of these circles selected. You can also use the properties and use this pathfinder, click to minus front. So they both do the same thing. So either minus front or use the Shape Builder tool and knock that out. And now I can just color that a solid color. I think that looks a lot better, and I need my numbers to be ahead of this. So I'm going to go to Object, Arrange, Send Backward, and now I have my numbers on the top. So I have one extra thing to do, and that's just to make this border that's right here. So I'm going to get my ellipse tool again, go in the center, hold Option, Shift, and draw a circle that's just to the outside of my numbers. Make sure I align it here at the top. And let's make this over here on the swatches, fill, none, stroke, white. And I'm going to make that one a little bit thicker. So the last thing I want to do to clean up the dartboard and finish up the illustration is to put one more line that kind of covers up the edge of this. So if I zoom in, you can see I have this little bit of that showing there, and I want to cover that up. So if I click on this outer ring that I made and I give that a white stroke also, so stroke and put white, that also covers that edge up so it looks a little bit cleaner. All right, and then there's one other thing I wanted to show you how to do in this assignment. It's not really part of the dartboard, but it's just a good time for me to show you how to use one of the gradient tools. Is to, let's draw a background behind it. So let's go on our layers and draw another layer and pull it behind here and draw a rectangle. You can just click here, and our artboard is 5 by 5, so you can click 5 by 5, and then I want it centered vertically and horizontally. And I wanted to show you how to use one of the gradient tools that we haven't used yet, just for a nice background. If you go over here to gradient, and again, if it's not open, just open it up here in window and click this last gradient right here, freeform gradient. So you'll see right now it actually put it as my stroke. So I'm going to go over here to the toolbar on the left and just switch that because it put the gradient as my stroke. And I want to flip that so that the gradient is the actual fill. And I actually don't need a stroke. And let's click back on the fill. And let me show you how to edit this freeform gradient. So it's using colors that I've been working with automatically, but I want to show you how you can change that. If you see these things here, these little circles, these are color stops. You can edit those by clicking on them, and then you can change the color of them to whatever you want, and you can move them around. So I want to show you that because our next assignment, we're going to be making some icons, and it's very useful to know how to use this freeform gradient. If you want another color stop, you just click somewhere, and you can change the color to whatever you want. So experiment out making a background with the freeform gradient before you turn this in. All right, I see one other thing that I want to do before I close this. I kind of forgot about the inside of these, in between all these segments. They are transparent. You're seeing the background. So what I want to do is I want to click on my layer that has the drawing and just put a white stroke on everything there. So let's go stroke, white, and maybe make it 0.5 should work. Nope, let's make it a little bigger. Go ahead and make it, there you go, 0.75. All right, now we are done with this thing. So you're going to go to File and Save, and just save a regular Illustrator file of it. And then to export it for your portfolio, you're going to go to File, Export As, and choose JPEG, Export. And you can make this for your website, a 4 is fine. And the resolution, you can just keep it at 72 for your website. That should be just fine.